Kia ora, welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod on RugbyPass and Sky Sport. I'm Ross Carl. Big weekend of action. The Crusaders, have they got one hand on the title already? Another title? And the Chiefs, incredible comeback from the Chiefs to break that losing streak. Joined in studio, Bryn Hall's up from Christchurch. He stayed in Auckland. So thank you very much for joining us here and congratulations on your 100th.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Big day. Jipper, as usual, thanks for being in. James Parsons, former Blues player. Let's start, Bryn. How big was that win yesterday in the context of the season, as far as you guys are concerned? Is that the thing that sort of sets the mark in the ground?
I think it was massive for us. I think there's a lot of hype during the week around, which is fair. I think it's pretty fair. I think the Blues, this year especially, have warranted that kind of hype, and I guess for us, we were just really excited for the opportunity. Anytime you get to kind of test yourselves against a team that's coming up and... you all right there, boy? You all right, mate? You all right?
Lots of hype.
Sorry.
Lots of hype.
No, but like, it was fair because they're playing really good footy, and it was an opportunity for them to be at home. They'd been away, and for us, we just really wanted to come up here and to get a W. And I guess to add to that was special milestone, having my family and all my friends in that to be able to be a part of that 100. But for us, we're just really you're really fortunate to be up here and to have the W as well, because we know it's a real exciting Blues team, and they're a tough team. It was a real test match feel, a lot of electricity in the air, and good to come out with the W. You all right, mate?
I knew this was going to be a tough night. Yeah, obviously, congratulations.
Thanks, boy.
On your 100th and the win. Look, I don't think it's as far off as the score gave. I think the discipline was the difference, and I've sat here past weeks, complimenting the Crusaders in their game, and the biggest weapon is you can't give them ins into your 22, because that's how I suppose when they go into the 22, they come away with points, and we saw it. They defended, really well. They weathered a storm, around that scrum. It was scrum after scrum after scrum, and they ended up getting a penalty back. They exited out of that, and I think the Blues ended up scoring through a turnover eventually, and then they got a 3. But there was a crossover penalty from the Blues. They kicked, and then the old mate put in a grubber. He thought he was playing for the Warriors, and Jack Goodhue scores. But one entry into the 22 try. And that's what I mean. It was just one mistake by the Blues, just an accidental offside. And, it's those sorts of penalties, and that discipline was always going to be crucial, not to give them those piggyback penalties. Because I thought every other stat was on par. Set piece, line out was on par. Previous weeks, the Crusaders have run other teams' most line out at 40%. So, these are areas of the Blues game that have not had that parity in the past, and I thought the scrum was the same, the breakdown. So it's not as a wider gap as some are saying. When you look at the score, yep, absolutely, and they earned the right. I think at 2015 we were back in the hunt there, but then again discipline let us down, and then it goes to 29-15. We get back in there, 29-20. And then obviously another penalty. Well, Sevu gave one penalty, and then obviously Curdy did the suplex, and then from there Richie Mo'unga scores another try. And do you know what I mean? So it was always the discipline that just kept that score out of reach. So I put it down to that gap's not as wide as some people are thinking after yesterday.
You guys opened some doors in the first 20 minutes too. Your discipline, especially through the first 20 minutes, was poor.
Yeah, it was.
Were you surprised the Blues didn't take those opportunities the way that they had through the first part of the season?
Well, we just knew that, I look at that scrum. There was a scrum, probably they had about 4 or 5 resets, had a couple of penalties, and we knew that kind of movement, and they were talking around it as a group saying, like, if we can just hold them out here, get a penalty, then we get momentum. So those kind of situations, when they did come into our 22, we found that if we can stop them here, it stunts that momentum that they had. There's a couple of times that they actually could have scored, like if Rico just got that over the top and Will Jordan doesn't intercept that, that's a try, and then that's them being down in that 22, scoring points from that. So conversely for us, like Jipper talked about it, when we tried to get down there, we tried to get points from that. So, but yeah, like coming back to your point around our discipline, that first probably 15, 20 minutes, we just weren't getting what we wanted and giving the Blues opportunities to be in our 22, to put us under pressure. So we showed a bit of resilience around that, but in saying that, they went their first try, they ended up getting a break, went wide, and then they ended up going wide again and scoring. So Coming back to Jip's point, I don't think the gap's that far at all. I think probably those two penalties, like Curdy's one was probably a big one, because they've done that hard work getting that penalty and then turning it for us. It gave us an opportunity to then score points off that, and then Uffa's one as well. I know it was a little bit late, 74th, 73rd minute, but it just gave us a little bit of breathing room around having playing with 14 men. So it was a bloody tough encounter, and we're pretty fortunate to come away with the win at Eden Park for sure.
Those cards, were you surprised that Uffa only got a yellow when it clearly clipped the guy in the face?
Yeah, well, I was at the game live, so I couldn't hear the comms, so it was a little bit hard to read, but it did come in contact with the face, so I suppose you normally see, but they went through their process, and you've just got to trust that process, and they stayed pretty consistent around that for the day, and that's the only thing you can always ask for, is on that 80-minute performance that you're consistent with that, and that's what it was. So whether Scott Barrett feels the same, I'm not too sure, but.
So his complacency hasn't been a thing you guys have done for a long time?
No, it's not. I think for us,
They told me off camera they've already won it.
Put that on the dressing room.
Yeah.
Every other team that can't.
I just think for Super Rugby Aotearoa, Jipper alluded to it, we played the Hurricanes last year, and that still stings, losing at home. So if you get it wrong by a couple percent, you're going to be losing games. And I think for us, it's more importantly getting our prep right every single game and giving it its merits that it deserves every single week. So we know the competition definitely isn't over, and it'll be a week-to-week process for us, definitely for sure.
So with the Blues to close this gap, is it just discipline and taking advantage of your opportunities, or where else did you see within that the Blues need to close the gap on the Crusaders?
Oh, like I said, I think it was pretty even across the board in those statistics, in the crucial statistics. As I said before the game, I thought the set piece was going to be a crucial area, and if we could get parity there and play the style that we had in previous weeks, we're going to be right in the hunt. On this fixture alone, discipline was the crucial nature, because they just kept picking up their threes and picking up points. So, rectifying that. But when you next play them again, it's about bringing it all together and making sure that you nail it on the night. It's doing it again and nailing the set piece, nailing the discipline. Because I've stood here weeks prior and obviously said things about not giving them opportunities to go into their half. The blueprint. It's bringing it all together at once, because you're going to have to do it for 80 minutes, and you're going to have to shore up the defence. Because we had a lot of ball, the Blues, but defensively I think we slipped off a few tackles as well, and tackled around that 79-80% mark, which if you're going to beat the Crusaders, you're probably going to have to tackle around that 90% and not let them score 4 tries. It was 4 tries each. But they had to defend a lot more, and they defended it around 87-88%, which probably isn't at your guys' standard, and letting them 4 tries is probably quite a lot for you guys. But again, that was that parity of 4 tries each. So again, it goes back to that discipline, was that that 16-point buffer.
There were some moments in there that made me think how much that game meant to you guys. Things like Sevu Reese's celebration, where he goes like this and gives it the Rico Ioane, and it kind of, to me, it said, we're sending a message to you, to Auckland, that you can say that you're up with us, but you're not. Is that the feeling that you guys are trying to sort of put that message out there, like we're very much the top team here?
There's nothing as a team that we're talking around those kind of celebrations around that. It was more just a spur of the moment around the decision.
Oh, he thought about that, surely.
Yeah, it was
he came up with that.
Yeah.
Well,
there's no PR spin on that, mate. No. Come on.
I think it just comes back to there was so much hype around the game, and so we hear it as players. Jipper, there's a lot of times where you hear and you see in the media, you see on Sky, you see everything. The whole build up for that week, it was massive. So I think maybe it was just more of a reflection around how Sevu was feeling in that situation, because again, you've got to respect the Blues and how they've been playing this year. And Rico, when he does that for his try celebration, it's due to good rugby. So for us, we just knew it was a massive encounter, and we were just very happy to get away with it.
I'd say it's the biggest compliment, isn't it?
Well, 100%.
Yeah. Biggest compliment. Yeah. It wasn't as smooth though. It was a bit of an awkward fold.
Yeah.
Well, he's not used to it.
Yeah,
so
and he wasn't. He unfolded quickly and sprinted back halfway. I don't know if he was quite confident enough to hold the pose. He should have he needed to hold it a little bit longer.
Yeah, maybe you could give any feedback. Maybe you could talk to Sev.
Well, the only other thing I'd say is just come up with your own.
One thing I did want to bring up that I thought we're talking about the set piece battle. Jipper brought up to dominant scrum. I think probably in the past, I look around at halftime, we tried to assert a bit of dominance to try and go for a penalty on halftime to maybe get a bit of a buffer around that. But the Blues scrum was pretty dominant on the weekend, and I guess where we try to get more parity is probably around our line-out drive. I don't know if you saw that, Joe. I know we scored a try with Cody Taylor through that, but probably in that second half, we probably went to our set piece a little bit more around our drives, trying to take the Blues boys' legs out, and probably just got a little bit of probably a bit of gain out of that. So we knew that the set piece, that there was a lot of talk around the scrum, and fair play to them, they've got 4 All Blacks in that tight position. And then for us, probably another way we could get dominance was just around our line-out drive, and probably got a little bit of parity around that, where we ended up getting penalties from that, and coming back to Jipper's point, got into the 22, and then we were able to score points through a penalty or tries.
Speaking of the line-out drives, Cody Taylor, best player in the comp right now, Chipper?
Oh, he's definitely up there. He's doing his core roles well and getting around the paddock, but there's so much talent running around. It's hard to put a nail on it. Richie's playing pretty well as well. I think I have to say Rico's playing fairly well as well. So there's a lot going around. It's hard to put it down to one player, but he seems to be the most consistent of the lot. He's putting his hand up, and he's top try scorer as well, is he not?
There's a little bit more of a Dane Colstrom. I feel like there's a slightly more, maybe more of a ruthlessness that you're seeing about him this year. I mean, he's always had all of the talent, but there's the odd push, the odd shove. There's, for a guy who, when you meet in person, is such an unassuming and incredibly nice bloke, there's a little bit of niggle in there.
Yeah, no, I think it is. Well, I think it's coming back to Dane Cole's coming back and really inserting himself in that that starting spot. They've obviously had a little bit of a rotation system, but competition we've talked about a lot on this podcast. When you come in competition consistently, and he wants to be he wants to take it to the next level. So he's probably come back a little bit trimmer. He's probably changed a few things in his training to be able to get that kind of pop. He looks like he's got his pop when he's running, and he looks like a back. He scored that try against the Highlanders a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, he just looks like he's enjoying his footy. And so you talk around, first and foremost, you've got to know your core roles, but I think you're just coming back to around having those impactful moments in a game, whether it be a line-out drive, getting through the line, showing speed. He's got a lot of pop in his speed back. So for us personally, we want to see that continuing to get better, and then hopefully that form can then go on to when he's with the All Blacks, because that's where he wants to perform.
Ricky Riccitelli, he had a couple of moments this weekend. He's the third string hooker at the Canes. There is a lot of hooker depth around when a guy like Ricky Riccitelli is third string at a Super Rugby franchise. Well,
you just sort of forget. Like he had about 2 years where he went really well. I think Colsey was injured, and Safa Moore was just sort of finding his feet. And he played, I think 2 years straight for the Canes, and ended up, touring with the All Blacks. Didn't play, but playing really good code back to back to back. And then he's just sort of fallen, away as that third string hooker for the Canes. And I was really happy to see him just remind people, hey, I'm here, I'm chipping away. And it doesn't seem like he's a guy that drags his lip. He's just been training in the background, doing his hard graft, and now he's got his opportunity again. He's always that guy, when he gets his opportunity, he delivers. I know against you guys he had his one hiccup of the overthrow, but after that actual overthrow, he still had a good game, against you boys. And then, he put on a big shift the other night. I thought, for someone that hasn't had a lot of minutes at Super Rugby level, to come back, he's always fit, he's always ready to go. And he just gave a little shot across the bow, I reckon, just to say, hey, let's not just forget about me. I'm still a good quality rake. And I think, to the other 4 franchises, if I was looking around and you wanted to do a bit of recruiting, I think he's off contract at the end of this year. He'd be a hell of a pickup. He's too good to be sitting at third for me.
Where does he go? Because he can't go to the Highlanders. They've got
Blues. Come.
Yeah, Blues. Straight to the Blues.
Come on. Come on up.
Yeah.
No, it'd be a good fit. It could be good competition.
Yeah.
For Curdy and Lou, that's up here. It'd be great.
And the fact that he's experienced as well. He's played a lot of footy, so I think anytime you can add depth, especially if you talk around the Blues.
I think he's great mates with Bodie as well. He can move into his big mansion.
Yeah, coming back to what Jip said, he consistently plays well when he needs to. You've got Safa there and Dane there, who's obviously injured at the moment. But yeah, for a guy that's just probably ranked third down there, you go to the Blues or another franchise. Yeah, look, he's a guy that's proven. He's proven as well. He was in that All Blacks squad not too long ago, so yeah, it was just a gentle wee reminder that he's still there.
Now, the Aotearoa Rugby Pod is brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped, used by over 2 million people worldwide. It is the best ball trimmer on the planet.
Yeah.
You've got to say that with a straight face. So you get 20% off, with our exclusive offers if you go to manscaped.com. manscaped.com/rugby. Now, the big tool to use, guys, is this.
Yeah.
The Manscaped Lawnmower 3.0.
Get a lawnmower out.
Thanks, mate. There we go.
Well-groomed man,
What's that got
possibly
there?
the best groomed man in
Hey,
Super Rugby.
you got a little ball deodorant there too.
I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
my
Ball
missus is going to
toner.
love this.
Yeah.
She's just going to be
Toner.
like, come on, thank you so much.
You'll love it too because it's got a ceramic blade that reduces accidents.
Well, we don't want
Downstairs.
accidents down there, do we, Jim?
No.
We don't want it down
No,
there.
we don't.
So, tell you who needs this shipping as well? Sean Stevenson. Sean Stevenson needs this. So,
Is that right?
yeah, he's living in a mansion with Bryn Gatlin, obviously, they live together. But if there's one man that needs this,
Yeah.
I'll be sending it to
Shooter.
Sean Stevenson.
Hairy
yeah.
man.
Yeah. Needs to sort that out.
Your
so,
balls will thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
He definitely will thank me for sure for his balls.
People can enroll in the hygiene plan as well. If you get onto Manscaped, the Peak Hygiene Plan will help you keep clean and keep everything right. So, yeah, pretty good. Make sure that you get to manscaped.com/rugby and we'll look after you for all of your grooming downstairs needs. You guys happy?
Very.
Look at me, stoked.
happy.
Can you see the smile on my face? Just love it.
Get it out, mate. Show them the lawnmower.
Yeah, let's have a look. Yeah.
Get the lawnmower out.
Where's the lawn?
Go on, get the lawnmower out, right?
Yeah, it's got power in it. Let's see it.
Oh,
Yeah, look
look
at
at
that.
Oh,
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait. What else we got here?
Apprehensive myself, but yeah.
Oh, look at that, the ball toner as well. Bit of ball deodorant. Man, just everything a guy needs.
It's exactly what you
Looking
want.
forward to it. Can't wait.
So don't forget, get to manscaped.com/rugby, get your 20% off, get your free shipping, and get the Lawnmower 3.0. Canes versus Chiefs. I mean, highlight reels guys. David Mckenzie is one of those highlight reels guys. He moved into 10 in the second half, and he's done that a little bit. And the Chiefs seem to go great guns when he moves into 10. Should we rethink the Damien McKenzie 10-15 thing?
well, potentially, because even their class moments in the first half, he was at 10. If you think about Samasoni's try, he was at first receiver, not Samasoni's try, sorry, Caleb Trask's try, where Damo was at first receiver, he cut that guy and he put Samasoni through that hole. He came on that down line and then he obviously offloaded to Caleb Trask and Trask scored. So, look, when he steps up to first receiver, things happen for the Chiefs. Whether he has to start at 10, I'm not too sure, but the way Chase Tiatia played, I think you're going to have to find a place on the field for him, and then maybe fullback's a natural place for him. So maybe that squeezes Damo up to 10, and that's a better fit for their squad. And then maybe a Trask or a Gatlin's on the bench. I'm always going to have a foot in a Gatlin camp. I can't help that. I just think he's a great 10. I think he's a great game manager. I just think he needs time in the saddle, and I really think Damien Mckenzie is one of the best fullbacks in the world, and I just like him at fullback. But I'm also aware the performance that Chase Tiatia and the energy he brought, the game changed when he came on, and we talk about big moments, and I know everyone thinks that the penalty when the Canes chose the scrum, and it was a penalty. Am I keeping you up?
No, you're right, mate.
It's a big celebration.
Yeah. You deserve your celebrations. I'm talking about scrums, and he gives me a big yawn. But Gus got Angus Tarvell got the penalty after the Canes called the scrum, and then they obviously from there, and then Rayasi held someone back, and then they obviously got another penalty, and then from there, Chase Tiatia scored after they got the maul. Everyone will talk about is that the change moment, but it's the try after that when Damien McKenzie breaks through and he offloads to Tiatia, and then Tiatia finds Finau and Finau finds Weber, and from that, if you watch Weber turns around, he points straight to Tiatia with a big smile from ear to ear, and so Tiatia's just scored a try. He's just set up another one, and he was just a ball of energy and a link guy that it clearly sparked something, and he seems to have a knack of doing that. Does it for Bay of Plenty. He's done it before for the Canes. He does have a knack of having that play as well that you go, oh, geez, what were you doing? But if he's an infectious player, and a wing's not a spot for him, midfield's not a spot for him. So if he's going to start, he probably has to find fullback, which then you have to consider that Damo will be at 10.
No chance to be on the right wing?
I just don't think his game I think he's a fullback. You need him in those open spaces and that freedom to roam. He's a live wire. You want him to have that full width of the field ability to roam. You don't want him to just be protecting a corner and defensively having to be in that pendulum where he's got to be up high defensively, whereas that fullback role, if there's any kick, you know, he can make something out of nothing.
I think as well, like what I love around like Damo, it's always those that, you know, they've done it a couple of times. We've taken off Bryn early and Trask early in the game, and then it's that kind of 50th minute mark where all that kind of hard work's done, the kind of stalemate's done in that first part of it. I know that obviously the score didn't dictate that, but when you inject Damo at 10 and those kind of at that time, it's a little bit different when you start a game and you've got to manage a game, and then you've got to, you know, probably do you get the same effect if he comes into 10 at the first minute compared to the 50th minute, because I just feel that the game's in the balance there. It's a little bit more open. Benches are coming on a little bit more, and so the legs are taking out you a little bit, so then Damo can roam a little bit. So if they continue to keep doing that, like you said, you know, I know Bryn as well and Trasky as well, who I've played a bit of rugby with as well. Do you start with those guys and you just keep it as it is, but then you've got to reward Chase Tete, who was outstanding on the weekend, probably the difference actually, to bringing that momentum back for the Chiefs. So it's almost going to have that. You've got to start having the conversation. Do we actually start, you know, Mckenzie at 10? Because I think from the performance on the weekend and what they got from him, the attacking and the gamesmanship as well, it's definitely a conversation that the Chiefs coach is going to have.
Does it change his mindset? I mean, Damien's used to a bit of freedom. Suddenly you've got to go into 10 and control things. Is that something we actually want Damien Mckenzie to be thinking about, to be at his very best? Because the ability to roam is at the heart of his game.
Yeah, it is. And look, it will have to change his mindset against different teams that bring different defensive pitches, you know. So it is, it's 6 of 1, half dozen. It will have to change your mindset as such. You're going to have less time. But as I said, that first try to Trask, he naturally does step up to first receiver when he's in the 15 jersey anyway. So it won't be that big a change. And sometimes a 10 drops back into the backfield. So it's not a massive shift. It's just probably less of that, you know, you see the blonde head, the blonde mullet just sprinting in.
Terrible haircut.
Injection into the line. That's when I get excited as a fan. You just see him come from the backfield on that wide angle and you just know something's going to happen. That's when I think he's at his best and he's dancing around. And let's not forget, he is the player that set up that second try as well from the backfield, and he's jinking and jiving, and he gave that offload to Aotearoa. So.
And the modern way is that you can have your 15 coming in and playing first receiver when you want. I mean, we've seen that all the way back. I'm thinking back to maybe when the Hurricanes won the title, and we saw James Marshall playing at first receiver a lot. And I think we've seen now, ever since then, basically, it's you go in when you need to, and that could suit Damien Mckenzie.
Yeah.
I think it's the way probably New Zealand teams play, we're having those two pivots. And so, coming back to just point, there's not a lot of change, being 15, coming into 10, and probably Damo's done it a long time around, you know, being in both positions, having a pretty good understanding of what it looks like. So, but yeah, like you said, when you as a player, you're on high alert when you see Damien Mckenzie roaming around, especially off counter-attack. You know, he's world class when he gets into that counter-attack. There's little breaks in the line. He's looking for that prop or that lock that he can go at. And like he did for that try when Weber scored that try. So, it's going to be an interesting conversation. Really interesting to see how if they play him at 10 or they play him at 15 moving forward.
Let's talk about that lid too. I think we've seen
Nathan Cleary, mate. Nathan Cleary.
It's a shocking lid. I think Geordie's got a shocking lid at the moment. David Havili's gone for a more fine-tuned version of their shocking lid. Like, what is up with that style?
It's a Nathan Cleary, who, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Nathan Cleary.
It's just awful.
Yeah, it's not flash.
Look, I want to be throwing stones because at least they can grow there. I'm just happy to have some of it still there. So long may it continue.
Yeah, because obviously Jack had the mullet. You know, there was obviously the mullet that was floating around, but it's kind of just moved on from there. And the old Nathan Cleary seems to be at the heart of it.
Cleary's is a little bit slicker though. Theirs is running quite a lot longer.
Yeah, there's some body out the back.
Yeah, there's some real thick. It's a thick mane.
Yeah. It looks like one of the boys has come around and given them a haircut.
Looks like. I hope they didn't pay shillings for it. It's truth.
Absolutely.
Can we touch on the Canes start? And I think their attack, their tip and forward release out the back game was sharp, and their committed runners. Even for the first try, I think Artie gave it out at the back to Geordie, and Geordie got a good fend on Anton. Their runners, their short ball runners, ran such good committed lines that it committed defenders, which created space. You look at Riccatelli's try, I think it was Proctor came on a short ball and Newmere gave the ball out the back to Nani, which created that space for him to go to, and he linked with Riccatelli. But they'd just given a tip beforehand. I think Blackwell had given a tip to Princep. And it just sucked and defended. They got him behind and they were playing flat and hard to the line. Yeah. And then in the second 40, did you see the depth of their attack? And they seemed to just play deep and they stopped going through their forwards. And I think they went to Orbs at one stage and he passed back to Geordie and they lost that punch in that second 40. And it wasn't like they stopped playing, but they went away from what was working so well for them in that first half?
Just around that, because like their shape that they've predominantly done for a while, probably for the viewers, is around like, usually if you're going off 10, you've got 3 players outside the 10, and you usually hit the middle guy and you've got 2 cleaners there, they're right there. But with the Hurricanes, they actually end up hitting the third guy, have a nice down runner, and it gets to that transition around the centre, maybe a loose forward or the winger. So you would have seen a couple of times Saturu got caught coming in because that down hard line that Jipper was talking around really enticed them to bringing him in, and they scored 2 tries off that. But
Proctor most of the time.
Yeah, correct. So I think they did go away from that a little bit. Maybe that comes back to around, obviously the Chiefs changed their mindset. They had a little bit more ball, scored more tries, and weren't able to probably have that attacking prowess that they had at the start of the game. But it's a great weapon that they have. It's really hard to defend because traditionally when you're playing against teams, like I said, you've got those 3 guys. It's pretty not easy to defend, but you've got more of an understanding around, and it's pretty clear, and you're used to seeing those pitches. But with the Hurricanes, they do a really good job around their face play shape, being able to get to that winger connection with the centre and getting them to make pretty hard decisions with all the animation around them.
The Chiefs, are they back? Do we see what we need to see out of them?
Well, I think Bryn made a good point last week. Sometimes you need a bit of luck to get out of it, and they got a bit of luck because Riccatelli was penalised for breaking the defensive line early when he was at halfback, and Brad Weber had knocked it on at that maul. And then obviously he got penalised and they went to that maul, and Arkoi eventually scored from that maul. So that was their luck because that was the try that put them ahead. And they came home hot. I think they were going to win regardless because they were just coming home hot. They were awesome in that last 20. It's like they just came to life and they started to believe. But they needed that luck. Now they've got that luck, there will be a different feel, there'll be a different vibe, and I'll be interested to see the team selections because will they keep with the I know we've just spoken about that Chase Tiatia, but maybe is his injection off the bench the key, and having a settled start because they actually have started really well. Yeah, let's not forget they've had a good start, and then maybe his injection and that unknown factor. Early in a second half could be the difference. So I think it's a big, their 23-man selection is crucial. And if they can get that right, then I think we'll get a clearer gauge of are they back. But again, on the flip side, after Sunday, it's a big week for the Blues just to bounce back. I think, as we've discussed, I don't think they're far off the top dogs and the Crusaders, but they also just need to put a stake in the ground just to remind the rest of the comp, no, we're not far off, but we just want to send a message back to the rest of the comp as well. So it's a big week for the Blues as well as the Chiefs.
I was just going to say, because last year they played us and then they ended up playing the Hurricanes and then they lost that game. And it ended up being a pretty pivotal game that they lost. So
What else came out of that game that you thought with the Chiefs and the Hurricanes that really took your attention?
I think it's just a missed opportunity for the Hurricanes to get a win. I think it's great for the Chiefs, and we talk around having a little bit of luck, and they got a real good second half and came over the top and ended up winning. But you could probably see in Artie's reaction after the game, it's probably one that got away with him. Being at home, in a position where they were, they probably should have put that game away. So yes, they did a lot of really good things, especially in that first half. But it's probably one that we were thinking back at the back end of the season. I think that's one that got away, and probably the difference between having a win and then having 3 losses, it's tough, especially in this competition.
And I think it's the first time the new rules has played a part because of that scrum, calling a scrum rather than going to the maul.
Yeah.
Because the reason they called the scrum, and that's when Angus gets the penalty, is they didn't go to the corner because of potentially being held up over the line and getting a goal line dropout. So it's a big factor. It's a big change. Because it's not a reward. Being held up over the line and ending 50 metres back. It's not I just don't think it's a good rule.
I look at even the even that grubber as well. There's just no pressure. There's no pressure anymore around there. Like, even if they've ground that ball, instead of going back to a 22 and you're thinking, man, we've missed opportunity. Should I really have done that? You've got the more confidence around it now because, if it's a 50-50, like Jack scored, great. But if, even if a kidder gets that down, they've got a line out, a kick from the goal line instead of the 22. So you're attacking actually already in your half. I've actually really loved that rule. It's been a great addition to the competition, I think.
So when you kicked that grubber, that was part of your mindset, like this is a win-win situation.
Well, we actually got an advantage off it. So, off the advantage, it's just so much easier. And then obviously Jack called that space and there was an opportunity for it to come through. But
So he called that?
He did, yeah. So we called it. He called it. I heard his comms. I had a quick look at him, and then obviously Ruru was coming in the line, and there was space in behind. And coming back to that point, you've just got no fear around that because it's an advantage first and foremost. But even if there wasn't an advantage, that you've got an opportunity that you're going to get the ball back in an attacking zone part of the field.
At the same time, you guys aren't scared of going for the line-out drive. I mean, you scored a few this year that way too.
Yeah. Well, I think we have changed a little bit around that. So we do have confidence in our drive.
We've scored a lot more scrums this year than you normally.
100%. Yeah. Usually, if you're around that 5 metre zone, we're like, probably if you're looking at the Crusaders previously, we're going to go for a drive every single for a time, or we might have a special around that area. But with the addition of this new rule, we actually do think about it now. Like, man, we're actually not getting pay out of this. We'll go to our scrum.
Taking a lot more threes this year as well, eh?
Yeah. Well, it comes back to the Blues.
Building scoreboard pressure.
It's that scoreboard pressure, especially in games like that. We talk around in that.
And that was crucial if you think about it when those threes.
Well, because we ended up getting 3 penalties and ended up going to 14 points. So the Blues had to score twice or at least score 3 to try and win the game. So, probably in the past we'd probably back ourselves going to those line-out drives. But for the fact that you lead off that pressure if you don't score the try there, and they actually get to be reset. Those kind of decisions around, is it a scrum, is it a penalty? There's actually been a lot of thinking around how we get our points this year.
Yeah. Richie Mo'unga is going all right.
Yeah.
He was good on the weekend. I mean, he gets the 3 points, obviously, because he's a good goal kicker, but Jesus, all-round game is looking solid. Is that the benchmark for Richie now? We're not going to necessarily see a lot of him in test form. We've got to see if this works at the top level.
Well, I think that's the good point you bring up there, Ross. I think, we've seen it for a long time now that he's been world-class at Super Rugby, and I think by Richie's standards, he's probably, wanting to take that form up to the next level. He wants to take to the All Blacks. And I think the fact that, he's been in the All Black environment now for 2 to 3 years, Bodie not being there as well, like, don't get me wrong, it's great to have pressure and be able to have someone there, but, it's going to be, he's going to be selected as the 10 and he's going to be able to run that team. And so, for New Zealand rugby and for New Zealand fans, that's what we want to see age up. We want to see that kind of progression of him, dominating games. I look at the Wallabies test match and that Bledisloe in Sydney, that was probably his standout performance, but it's been one performance. Whereas, there's been so many in the Crusaders usually where you think, man, Richie's played well this game against this team, had moments against Super Rugby teams. So I think for him, he's obviously wanted to play really well for the Crusaders and he'll do his due diligence around that. But I think at the next level, Jip, that's probably where we want to see that step up.
Yeah, I think the level of consistency he's shown at Super Rugby level is freakish. Like, he's been up for Super Rugby Player of the Year, I don't know, 2-3 years, and will be again, let's be honest. If it's not him or Cody Taylor, they're running hot at the moment. So it is that step up, and I think he would have learned a lot around the pressures of All Blacks, from the World Cup and last year. It was a tough year at Test match level for the All Blacks last year, and if it is going to be his baby in the black jersey, and there is Test match footy this year, and he's hoping there is. It's a big year for him to stamp his mark on it.
Yeah, he's going to have that chance. I mean, there's not even a question this year as to whether or not he's going to have that chance at 10. It's his jersey.
Well,
take it.
Yeah, well, that's it. Obviously, there's, Aotearoa's playing really well, and obviously Josh Ioane's been in and around there, but
it's his.
Yeah, yes. He's going to be out. He's going to be our 10. So, he's just obviously going to keep chipping over the Crusaders, keep playing rugby, but hopefully, taking the learnings that he's had in the black jersey probably the last 24 months and have an understanding around what that looks like, and then again, let's hopefully see pictures around that.
And getting a game plan that suits him.
They did. They have altered it a little bit. Yeah,
and I think if he gets that game plan that suits him, because I think that's what brings the best out of him in the Crusaders, is he just really has a game plan that just has his DNA and his touch on it. So I think if he can get that confidence and that game plan at that next level, I think that'll bring the best out of him. Not too sure if that's the case, but that's just how I see it.
So what changes then? Let's say if you had Bodie at 10 or you had Richie at 10, what is the difference between the game plan? I mean, how much adjustment does the All Black side need to make between the two guys and their particular preferences, whether they like to be flat on the line or behind a group of sort of dummy runners?
Yeah.
Or...
I think Bodie could do the same game plan, to be honest.
Yeah.
He could go between either.
I don't think they'll alter their game plan based on like their number 10s. I just think for Richie, there's a specific game plan that works.
Yeah.
And do you try and marry that up with the All Blacks plan around how they play? But yeah, look, I don't think even if Bodie was there, they'd have the same game plan.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think Bodie's as effective in any style,
100%.
to be honest, just because of his raw speed.
Yeah.
So
But to make Richie work the way Richie wants to work, what kind of tweaks need to be made for the layman?
I think they've done them.
They've done
them.
I think we started to see that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
With sorry, what's your old coach from the Crusaders?
Brad Moore.
Brad Moore, who was in the All Blacks.
Yeah.
I think he's starting to make those tweaks, and I think they'll be fine-tuning them again already. So I feel like those adjustments are being made.
Yeah.
And I think it just takes time at test level. I think, we look at like Dan Carter when he left and then Bodie ended up being the 10. It wasn't smooth sailing from the start, when that transition period came. So I think at test level, it just takes a bit of time.
Test.
Correct. It just takes it takes time, and you're playing against different teams. Like, we probably play a lot of a running brand of rugby, especially in Super Rugby Aotearoa, whereas, last year we played against Argentina. Completely different way of style. South African's tradition as well, and then you look at the Northern Hemisphere teams are based predominantly on defence. I saw an article around Ronan O'Gara around his thoughts around how they play Super Rugby in New Zealand. It's 80. He thinks it's 80-20, 80 attack and 20 defence, whereas in the Northern Hemisphere it's 50-50.
Yeah.
So they predominantly, and it's fair, a lot of it's based around defence, the collision, the breakdown, and so when you're not playing that every single week, it takes time to adjust. And so, Richie's had that experience at the World Cup around, playing England, and then, even when we didn't play South Africa last year, but playing Argentina in that one test match where it was close. It was a physical, it was based around defence. So it's just a transition phase. And so, again, the more times he gets more opportunities at that level, and then other guys as well, it just takes time to be able to adapt to that.
Cool. Let's talk about a test footy then. Wales. Very close.
PVK, eh?
Mate, 70 minutes. They dominated it. They dominated it for 70 minutes. They're playing a great brand of footy. Really like their forwards' skill set shift. Like Navidi, really like him at 6. He's a short 6, but he makes some really good carries. Gets through the other side, uses good footwork. Justin Tuparik set up a try with putting on his boot, put a little grubber through, and they ended up scoring a try that went to the TMO. Was it held up? Was it not? Doesn't really matter. It was a try on the field, so it went back down to on-field score. But the loose forward trio worked really well. Tight 5 worked really well, and they played a tough style. And their two wingers, Adams and Reece Sambit, just made gain line after gain line. And George North in the centre, and they just controlled the fixture. There was a disallowed try at a crucial moment. It would have gone to 32. Reece Sambit did a Matt Duffy and put it in the old league style in the corner, went upstairs and it hit the base of the post first, so ruled out, went back for a penalty, and that took it to 30-20. And at this stage, they'd given the red card for the neck roll eye gouge situation, and it was 30-20. And it was just like, okay, this is Wales.
Yeah.
And then it just snowballed out of control. Penalty after penalty, yellow card, and then went to a scrum. They put it back on the scrum, and they channeled. At first, I was like, they put them. This is going to sound weird, but they put the back on the side that the hooker will hook, and I was like, oh, Struth, why would you put it back there? Because that might affect the channeling.
Yeah.
But they obviously trained it because he did a really good job with the channeling, which was interesting. Anyway, they eventually scored from the scrum, number 8 off the back, and he went over. And then it went into the 82nd minute, and they scored in the corner. Dulon, who was exceptional all game, wasn't he? He did a chip and chase that led to Dupont's try early. He glided through. And it was quite fitting that he scored because I think he's my new favourite player in the French team. I thought Instamark was my favourite, but now it was good to see him come back after a long break. He came on earlier. Helibet went off with, I think, a concussion or an injury of some sort. So, but Dulon scored in the corner, 82nd minute, and it was just heartbreaking because, the Grand Slam was there for Wales. They'd earned the right. just played the game so well. Like they were clinical in all areas, and deserved the win because the French defensively had brought they came to life on attack, but defensively they just held back all game for some reason and just let Wales dominate. And then I don't know, the ref came into it, and I thought it was reffed really well, but it just. Yeah, it was a sad state of affairs. Like, it was a great finish. It was a great finish to the game, but I suppose it was a sad state of affairs. I really wanted Pivac to win because I know him and I wanted Wales to win. I suppose that's why I took that attitude to it, but the French stayed in the fight and they got the result.
Yeah. If you talked around the Hurricanes losing that one. Yeah, Wales did the same thing. You know, they had it all their way. They dominated all the things that Jip is talking around, and then, you know, obviously the indiscretions around yellow cards really put them under the pressure. And to France's credit, you know, they still had to win the game. You know, they did it in the 82nd minute, scoring that try, and you could see the emotion of the French, how much it meant to them. You know, now they've got an opportunity to play Scotland. Is that right? Play Scotland in a catch-up fixture. So it's all to play for, and I feel, because obviously we know Wayne Pivac as well, and it would have been great for him to win that Grand Slam, but it's one that got away from them again. You know, it was very similar to the Hurricanes, and I even talked about the commentators, listening to the commentators, they were like, oh, you know, there was a penalty happened, and that's probably the end of the game right there. And to France's credit, they came back and won, and now it's all to play for, what you want in a competition. You want to always go into the last week, and so
Scotland spoil the party.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, the French are fighters, man. Against England, they come back. And then they just lose at the death with England, and then you sort of think, you know, they're fighting away, and then they do in England on Wales, and it's like, it's been a great tournament, the Six Nations, hasn't it? In the sense how all these games have gone down to the wire. It was great.
And we talked about it earlier around the French, how dangerous they're going to be in 2023. A result like that, going into, like, it's obviously a long couple of years away, but a win like that and a moment like that, it's just going to galvanise that team even more and give them more confidence going forward. So, they've got opportunity against Scotland, but I think that kind of win can really be a pillar moving forward, especially coming into the World Cup in 2023.
Especially against such an experienced side.
Yeah.
Like, they had the upper hand of experience.
Yeah, that forward pack has a lot of caps in it.
Oh, yeah. And they obviously didn't. I just felt like they'd played the right game to win. I don't want to say they deserved to win because they didn't win, but it just. And the cards were fair. Like, it was all the French, got the right result on the day, but it was tough to watch.
We talked about the reffing off air, Jip. Like, I just thought the reffing and how they reffed it was really well, like, real clear the way he spoke. I don't know,
very
controlled.
Do you know what his name was? Line of communication. Pierce, Luke Pierce or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Something. Like Pierce. I don't know his first name.
But as a viewer,
Wayne Barnes. Was very.
As a viewer, sorry.
Just very clear in the bot. Like, I don't know. Their line of communication was outstanding.
As a viewer, if you've just come into rugby, you've got like just the way they delivered, very clear, and you had a great understanding. So I think we've obviously talked a lot around refereeing and their delivery, around that. So I just thought, me personally, just watching that from a viewer, just saying, oh man, this is really clear. Had the players around talking around it. So no, I thought it was a great way for viewers as well to see that.
That's an interesting point, because the thing about rugby, let's say in comparison to rugby league, is that it is a complex game. And the hardest part about getting into rugby is understanding it in the first place. So to have the referees act as that sort of person in between, we see it in the NFL, when they go upstairs and there's a very clear communication about exactly what's going on in the game. We kind of maybe need to see the referees as our point there.
I think, it's a fine line though, because some people see it as too long, because I did see on Twitter a little bit of, this is the longest game of rugby ever, this is like the NFL. But I was also sitting there going, well, at least they're going to get the call right, because they're taking their time. So there's some people that sit in our camp and they're like, oh, this is interesting, and they're taking their time to get the call right. And there's some people that are sitting there just going, hurry up and make the call. So it's about finding a balance as well. You're never going to please everyone. And I think, maybe down this part of the hemisphere, we want it fast, and then up there they just want the call that is made right and nailed. So it's finding a balance between the two.
I want my footy fast, but I want my decisions right. Like, the referee speed doesn't matter to me. It's about the tempo of the game that makes it entertaining.
I'm with you.
100%.
Yeah, we can take 2 minutes to get that right.
Absolutely, especially how crucial that fixture, because like if If say that try was awarded, that could have been, you know, a fourth try for Wales, and then they, you know, even if they lose, they finish within 7, they get 2 points, and then they go to 21 points, and next week's game doesn't matter. Even if France pick up 5 points, they've won, you know, the Six Nations. Whereas now, if they pick up 5 points, they potentially, you know, well, they take the Six Nations.
Yeah, yeah. England, what's going on with them? They've fallen back off.
Yeah, well, let's just understand Ireland. CJ Stander came out, announced his retirement. They had a lot to play for. They've had an up and down tournament, and they just came out firing. They had a couple of special moves, an overthrow back into Earls, and Earls had a great little bit of footwork on Johnny May, and it was just everything was running hot for Ireland on the day. They got out to a good lead, and at 32-18 it finished, but most of England's points came after a red card to Bundy Archie, so it's a hard one. I think Eddie's come out and said, we're making a few changes, we're changing our team, so you've got to bear with us. There's making some adjustments, but after such a, I suppose, fighting performance against the French, it was a surprise, I suppose, to see a performance like that, because you'd say the French were performing a lot more, I suppose, at a higher quality than Ireland, but I just felt like the emotion of CJ Stander's retirement and wanting to send him off, and maybe St Paddy's Day during the week, and what that means, and just, you know, the Irish get up for the big occasion, and sending people off on it, and they certainly were up for this game, and they got the job done.
I've read Clive Woodward talking about Eddie Jones and asking whether it's time to call it on Eddie Jones. Now, when you look at Eddie Jones's coaching history, he burns hot for a very short period of time. He's like Jose Mourinho in the Premier League. You bring him in, he turns it all around, and then he disappears. You know, has the best time with Eddie Jones gone now?
I don't know. He got them to a World Cup final.
Yeah.
I don't think you can take it off for Six Nations.
I think as well, if he's talking around like resetting and changing things, you know, you've got to give him time to be able to do that. I think you are right though. He is very similar to that around, you know, Jose Mourinho, around coming in really hot, getting a really good standard from the get-go, and then probably just dwindling off a little bit. But I think, you know, if you're resetting a team and there's altering things, there's definitely time for you. You've got to be able to be patient around that. And I know as probably England fans, and they're not patient, you know, because they've probably had a bit of success with Eddie, but there's obviously altering in their game that they're changing. And bigger picture, yes, they'd love to win the Six Nations, but they've got a World Cup in 2023. So do you hold off and you just, you know, you don't change things, or you just keep the status quo, then hoping that you're going to win a World Cup, or do you go in early and be able to make altercations with your team or the way they're playing, and then come 2023, it's different. So it's just whether the England Rugby Union want to be patient enough with that. But I think if they're altering and changing things, proven how he is, I think you keep it as status quo and give him a chance to go to that World Cup.
I suppose what we've learned in New Zealand is if you do take a couple of losses, you know, especially around World Cup time, the coaches get better for it. And maybe Eddie's been through the situation enough that he knows now the secret to getting through the other side.
I think if he wasn't coming out and saying, look, I'm making shifts for the future, then, you know, you'd be like, okay, well, you'd be more concerned if he wasn't saying that, is all I'm trying to say. Do you know, like if he was just saying, oh no, nothing's wrong here, nothing to see here, then you'd be like, oh, maybe it's time to move him on. But he's saying, look, I'm trying to make change and shifts, so just bear with me. If you know what I mean? Does that make sense? You know, like I just think he's saying the right things to keep him on board.
Yeah, but it's also going to be challenging because the amount of Test football being played, the Six Nations is working, but the international football to be played before the next World Cup is going to be far more minimal than it would have been before. You're not going to be playing 10 to 14 Test matches a year in the most part, are you?
No. There is a lot of calls, though, for him to bring a few younger players in. I think there's a bit of chat over there for Marcus Smith and Simmons and that to get in the squad. So maybe the fans over there are looking for a bit of fresh blood and looking for him to upskill a little bit for 2023, because they are probably seeing the French going for all this youth and seeing a bit of flair. So maybe needs to look at getting a bit of balance.
Just get into the tipping comp.
No, let's not.
Let's
Go
not.
on.
Is that because Bryn Hall changed his pick at the last minute to the Chiefs?
I did.
Well, I just feel for our viewers and listeners, like how are they taking advice off us if we're changing our picks last minute? I've just had a bad week. I've got 0 points.
Yeah, was that because you tipped the Blues?
I tipped the Blues and I tipped the Canes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Half time I was sitting pretty.
I'll tell you, I was pretty nervous actually when the Hurricanes were up. I was like, oh, terrible pick here, but had a change of heart.
Yeah.
They got over the line, so just crucial.
What changed your heart on that?
My partner actually, she's on the tipping comp, and so I went back and forth around it. And,
I changed to the Chiefs as well.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, but then when I saw the Orbs was at 10. And I changed to the Chiefs, and then I saw that Gats wasn't at 10, so I was like, oh, I'm changing back to the Canes.
Yeah, I think because obviously earlier in the week teams weren't named, and then my partner just sent out the team sheet for the teams, and I saw Auburn at 10.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, he's obviously doesn't play a lot of 10, so I just for that fact, I was like, game management wise, that was my reason behind it. I think that the Chiefs might.
The reason I jumped back is I was like, oh. Well, Orbs is a little bit of an unknown.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I was like, people do know Trasky.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go with the unknown factor. There won't be a lot of tape on him at first 5.
Yeah.
Anyway, here I am with 0 points. So.
Let's talk about Auburn.
Old tour leader over here.
They didn't play Auburn Ledger as a traditional 10 though, did they?
No, I felt like Lau Mapi and Geordie were at first receiver a lot in the first half, and then Orb stepped up to first receiver a lot more in that second half.
Yeah.
Well, so if Auburn Ledger's at 10 this week, do the Chiefs win at home against the Blues?
Well, he plays for the Canes, so...
Oh, shit, sorry. He played for the Chiefs last year. At 10. Let me try that again. Well, Chiefs Blues. Where does it go?
Blues.
Blues.
Yeah.
That simple.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the Blues. I think, it's great the Chiefs got that.
He'll text us saying I've changed.
No, I'll stick to this one. Yeah, the Chiefs, obviously, it's great to get the monkey off the back, but I think the learnings from last year when they played us, and then they had that little hiccup against the Hurricanes last year, I think they'll take that learning going in towards, against the Chiefs. Is that a home trip as well? Is that at home?
That's away.
It's away. Oh, well, yeah.
I just think it's a big week, and I think exactly what Bryn mentioned is this is the week where we had a good week against the Crusaders, obviously just losing, and everyone was going, that was a good performance, but, and and then we lost against the Canes the following week. So it's a crucial week, and I know that Leon and the coaching staff and the leaders will be making sure that this is a really sharp week, that we get right and we get our season back on track. So away from home, we got our monkey off the back away from home against the Chiefs last year. So it's crucial that we go back-to-back down there.
Is it close? What's the game?
Close?
Close. Is it close? What's the score?
The Chiefs Blues games always tough.
I think they're always close.
Yeah.
I think it'll be tight for the most part. I think the benches will be crucial, and I think that's where the difference will be. But I think it might pull out towards the end.
I think it'll be set piece parity as well. I think that's where the Blues will probably try and assert a bit of dominance there. Scrum and definitely line out.
A bit of dominance.
Yeah. So we've got Highlanders v Canes. What were the picks on the Highlanders v Canes?
I'll be going Highlanders.
Yep.
Highlanders.
I'll go Highlanders as well.
Highlanders and Blues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty easy this week. You guys sound like you didn't have to debate a lot in your heads.
Oh, not the Blues one.
I won't be changing for our viewers. I won't be changing picks this week. So.
Oh, that's good.
I'll be down in Queenstown actually. I'll be down in Queenstown watching them, so it'll be good.
Oh, the life of luxury.
By a week.
Tough. Until Thursday.
You deserve a break, mate, and congrats on the Hundy again.
Cheers, boy.
Mate.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you very much.
Good work. Thank you very much to Bryn Hall once again in Auckland with us.
Thanks, mate.
James Parsons as well. Join us next week on Aotearoa Rugby Pod and RugbyPass and Sky Sport.